Every so often there are stories, urban legends, tales of the unexplained that I hear and they get stuck in my head and I can't get them out. I've got one, but it's leaving me with more questions than answers. I'm gonna have to make a few calls. I need to get answers. I need to tell this story.
Yellow.
Hey man, I need you to come talk to me.
Need me to come talk to you about what?
I don't ever call you and try to get you to come talk to me unless it's important, right?
Yeah, generally. This must be pretty big if you need me to come see you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, can you make time to come see me within the next day or so?
Yeah, probably. Probably in the next 2-3 days I can make it.
All right, that works. I need to talk to you about something, and you're one of the few people I know that will give me straight answers.
That's not gonna be an issue. Yeah.
I knew damn well that if I told over the phone what I wanted, he wouldn't come in. Now, you can say that I manipulated my friend, but I understand with stories like these, people shy away from telling them. And I knew if I had him in front of me and I asked him man to man so he could look in my eye, that he'd be more willing to tell me and more willing to let me record.
Hello.
Hey man, how's it going?
It's going. How you doing?
Not too bad. Hey, I need you to come talk to me when you get a minute.
Okay. When?
Probably within the next couple of days, whatever your schedule will allow.
I can be there tomorrow morning.
That'll work. I got some stuff that there's only a few people I know that can answer the questions that I have, and you're one of them.
Not a problem.
All right, man. I will see you tomorrow morning then.
All right. I'll give you a call in the morning. Make sure you're up.
I knew my other friend was going to be less of a hard sell, but I felt it was best to continue with the secrecy out of fairness. And I have been talking about similar projects to this one that we have planned for next year. So this is right in our wheelhouse. But again, I felt it was only fair to keep the secrecy going. Alright, man. The whole reason I wanted you to come in is there's a trucker legend that I know of, and it's been bothering me, and I need answers.
Oh, there's quite a few legends amongst us truckers, so...
This one specifically has been nagging at me for quite some time now, and I need answers, like I said. I need you to tell me about the black dog.
You want to know about the dog?
I know it's one of those things where if you talk about it, it's a little iffy. Almost like you're asking to bring bad luck upon yourself.
I mean, it is an iffy subject, but also, it's kind of one of those, you almost feel like you're breaking mob code in a way of, trucking's not saying trucking's the mafia, but it's kind of that code of what happens in trucking stays in trucking, you know what I mean?
I get that. But you also have to realize that we've been friends long enough that I'm not going to make a fool out of you or the trucking industry or any of the strongly held beliefs that truckers have. And I could very easily look this all up on the internet myself, but I kind of wanted it straight from the horse's mouth, and especially someone who's had a dealing or a run-in with the dog. And the only people that have stories like that are the ones that have been trucking for as long as you have. I mean, you've been in the industry 20 years, right? Something like that.
19 years now. Well, I'm sure you've seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the premise of the movie, and for those who haven't seen the movie Black Dog, it is a trucker movie. Really, the entire movie's based off of that one event. A lot of people say, you know, whether you're superstitious or not, it's definitely it's. I'm not the most superstitious person myself. I'm really not, and you know me for a long time. It's a very real thing. It is. Now there's some different variations of, you know, what entails when a driver would see the black dog. So I mean, there's a couple of variations on, you know, the legend of it, if you will, or the what's that word I'm looking for? The mystic of it. I'm not sure if that's even the right word.
I think the word you're looking for is mythos.
Yeah, the mythos. Thank you. It's you know, again, to kind of touch on the movie, there's a lot of things in the movie that anybody that's out there that drives for a living, you instantly go to nitpicking apart everything you can about some of the stunts and things that were done. Like, this is crap. You can't do this, can't do that, or look at that. Take all that out of it. The whole premise of this movie is a driver who had an encounter with the black dog. And had that encounter not happen, the rest of the movie would make zero sense. You couldn't have made it. That being said, in reality, it's a very different scenario out there. It really is. Like I said, there's different variations of what the black dog would bring. Some variations of it, it's the black dog comes at you, and essentially he's going to take everything that you've been doing. And essentially, the main legend goes, it's when you've been out there running really, really hard, really, really long, just running yourself ragged. And instead of resting properly, you keep pushing and keep pushing. And in today's trucking dynamic, it's a lot harder to do with, you know, the advent of electronic logging devices. You know, you go back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and even further back in the industry, you know, where guys would run themselves 18, 20 hours at a time. And that happened a lot. The legend with the black dog, and again, I'm not the most superstitious person in the world. I've seen it and I've lived to tell about it.
Tell me the legend first, before you tell me your personal experience.
All right, the legend behind it, again, the premise of it, like I said, is they say it comes for you when you've been out on the road and you've been pushing too hard. It comes to take everything from you. Now, the variations of it is, some people, you know, it comes at you once and that's it. You have a bad wreck, and that's generally what happens. Is you have a bad wreck and your career is essentially over at that point. You hurt somebody or just wreck yourself, you know, whatever the case may be. Other variations of it is you see it 3 times. The first time you'll see it, generally sitting on the side of the road. Second time you see it, he will cross the road. The last time you see it, he comes at you through the windshield. Again, there's different variations of the black dog. I'm getting a hair on my neck standing up just even thinking of talking about this. My encounter with it personally, this was several years back. I was just running real hard, pushing to, you know, do what we do, get that load there, cover the freight. And I had been up, you know, for a couple of days with very minimal sleep. When I say minimal, you know, maybe hour or 2 here or there. Again, this was back before, you know, the electronic logging devices. This was when we were still running paper, which, a little backtrack pause for a minute. There's always been an hour of service for 60, 70 years. And when we were running what was called paper logs, there were a lot of guys that we made it up when we needed to make it up to do what we had to do. And that's where the ELDs come in. You can't really cheat it like we could with paper. Now, on one hand, yeah, we ran, in a sense, we run harder today than we did back then. Because now once you start your clock, you're racing that clock. So it puts more stress because now you got guys that, before ELDs, we weren't hot rodding through construction zones. Very few of us were. Now you got guys that are, because we're bumping up against that clock, we're pushing it. So in a sense, we're more stressed out now than I'm more stressed out now in some senses than I was running paper. Because when I was on, paper ELDs, okay, I ran 5-6 hours or whatever, and I was tired. I just took a nap for a couple hours and then just fixed the book. And that was where that, once again, we're supposed to follow the guidelines and the hours of service as they are written. But that's where paper gave us that flexibility in a way, even though we weren't supposed to have it, but we did. And a lot of officers knew it, and they would, and that's the cardinal rule. If you're tired, get off the road. That's the first and foremost I'm going to say before I continue any further is, if you are a driver and you are tired, I don't give a shit, pardon my French, what any dispatcher says. If you are tired, get off the road. No load is worth your life or anybody else's. Now, that being said, my personal encounter with the black dog was similar to the second situation that I told you about. Not the first one where he just comes right at you. It was one of the 3 steps. I was actually on the phone with a friend of ours that you know. We were both just pushing, and we were tired as hell. Like I said, a couple of days we had both been really pushing really hard, trying to run freight and, whatever. And my friend I was on the phone with, like I said, this is, 3-4 o'clock in the morning. It's late. There's nobody out there. And all of a sudden, I'm on the phone with my friend, and all of a sudden, he's, whoa. I'm like, what? I said, what'd you almost hit a deer or something? He goes, no, brother. I said, what? He says, did I just see what I think I saw? I said, I don't know. I think he was in Nebraska, and I was in Kentucky or West Virginia or something. I can't remember where I was at the time. And he's like, nope, I think it's nap time. And I said, yeah? He goes, oh, yeah. And right after he says that, I see something on the side of the road. I'm like, what the fuck? He goes, what? I said, what the hell was that? He's going, what did you just see? I said, I don't know, but it was big and it was black and it had 4 legs and it looked like we both just got real silent for a minute. And I mean, every hair on our body stood up. And he goes, I think you just saw what I saw. I said, well, what did you think you saw? The dog. That's just what we call it. We don't call it the black dog. We just call it the dog. And I said, yeah, I just saw the dog. And he goes, yeah, so did I. And I said, well, how far away from safe parking are you? He goes, maybe 10, 15 miles. I said, okay. I said, yeah, I got about the same. So we got each other parked, that night. We both got, and I think we had a good nap that night. I mean, I don't know how long he slept. I slept probably about 5 or 6 hours. And it was a very surreal experience. Again, some variations of it, some people, it's come straight at them and that was it. Or then there's, like I told you, the 3 warnings. I often wonder, a lot of drivers that have seen it come at you face, teeth snarling, and took everything from you, did they miss the first 2 warnings? And they very well could have. If you're not in the business, and again, maybe today's drivers, they've heard stories, but in the last, I'd say 10 years, if you have less than 10 years experience, you probably have no clue what I'm talking about. Because ELDs have been prominent, pretty much since last 5 or 6 years, where it was pretty much mandatory. And there were a lot of companies starting to go with that as far back as 10 years. Some of them further than that, but a lot of them started doing it 10 years ago, and then once it was implemented, 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was, a lot of guys have never ran that way. They've only ever ran under the computer where it tells them basically tells you when to shut down and when to go. Whereas some of us that were around before that, where we would, run 600-700 miles, sleep an hour, and then turn around and do another 700-800 miles, sleep 2-3 hours, and then go turn around and do, another whatever, or you did those 1,000-mile overnighters to get the freight there, which again was not legal to do so, but it happened, sure. And that's the only encounter I've ever had with it personally. I don't think I slowed down a little bit after that night. You know, it's one of those, like I said, it made the hair, all the hair on your body stand up and made you start thinking a little bit, okay, maybe I'm pushing too hard. Some people go, oh, you're just tired and seeing, weird things. No. Yeah, I was tired, but I know what I saw. Weird things are seeing, like, fireflies in a rainstorm. That's weird to me.
I think the most interesting fact is that you were on the phone with another trucker when it happened, and they saw the exact same thing that you did at the exact same time.
Right, and that's what was really surreal about it.
Yeah, you guys are multiple states apart, and then he saw it and didn't tell you what he saw, and then you saw it. So it's not even like there could have been some implantation of thought or psychosomatic thing going on.
Right. When I say that, I mean, you're talking within 20, 30 seconds of each other in the conversation that night. And we were multiple states away. Like I said, I think he was over somewhere around Nebraska or Kansas. And I think I was over like Kentucky, Tennessee, maybe into Virginia at that point. I'm not, somewhere in that area. I'm not exactly sure which state I was in. It was so long ago. And again, some people may think it's a lot of hogwash. But you know what? If you know somebody that's been in the business for a long time, 15, 20 plus years, talk to them and see what they tell you. Because a lot of us, we did push a lot harder than we probably should have. I'm grateful that I was smart enough to go, you know what? I know what I saw. I know what this means. It's time to get off the road. Because there's a lot of guys that over the years have lost their lives and or injured or, killed someone else because they didn't listen. And they kept pushing and the dog took away from them.
Getting to open up about the dog was surprisingly easier than I thought it was going to be. Although after listening to his story and his thoughts on the subject, I couldn't help but wonder if this was a true supernatural phenomenon, or if it was a collective hallucination due to thought implantation from the stories of other truckers over the years. Interestingly enough, my other trucker friend shed some light on that subject. Alright, let's start with a little background. How many years have you been in the trucking industry?
20 plus years so far.
And you're ex-military as well. Marines, correct? So you're used to trusting your instincts and not giving in to superstition or being scared easily.
Yes.
That's why it's interesting to me that you believe in this and have had your own experience with what I'm about to ask you. I want you to tell me the legend of the dog.
There's several parts to the legend. Some people say the dog comes when you don't take care of yourself and you get greedy and it chases you down. Other people say it comes right before you die or to warn you that something bad's going to happen.
Now, this legend is pretty consistent with most truckers, especially the old-timers.
Yes, there's people that have been on the road for more than a decade before social media and stuff really came out. Yeah, we all talked about it.
Now, I would imagine this is kind of a hushed topic, right? It's not something that a lot of truck drivers will sit around at the truck stops and talk about. There may be a few people that are willing to share their stories, but for the most part, this is not talked about a lot, right?
Some of the old timers will talk about it. The younger drivers, not so much. It's more of a hush topic.
Now, the other person that I've spoke to on this topic says that there are variations of the story. Some say you see the dog once, others say you see it 3 times, and still others say that if you manage to escape it 3 times, the rider or the phantom truck driver comes for you.
I never heard that variation of it. I just heard that when you see it, something bad's going to happen, or that you're just not taking care of yourself.
I know you've mentioned before that you've had your own experience with the dog.
Yeah, I have.
Would you mind telling me about it?
I can go into a little bit of detail, yeah. It was probably about 10, 11 years ago. I was coming into San Antonio and ran all night long, or into the day. It was afternoon, and I stopped, fueled up, and I figured I'd be done for the night. I had talked to a friend earlier that day, who was a broker, and later that I'd taken a shower, and he had called me up, had a load that a driver had fallen off of, and it was over in Eagle Pass, Texas, a little over 2 hours away, and asked me, can you pick it up for me? Didn't pay that well, but he was a friend, and it was going into Nogales, Arizona, and I was like, yeah, okay, and he guaranteed he'd have a load coming out of there. So I drove over there to pick it up, and it was supposed to deliver on Monday, and he said that they could take it as early as possible. Me being me, I had already pushed about 700 miles that day, decided I was going to try to run it. So I started heading north out of Eagle Pass. I believe it was Route 90. And it was a real long road. There wasn't much out there. You don't get many radio stations. Nobody's on the road. I'm driving down the road. Thought I saw something ahead. Flipped my lights on. I'm a big bull bar on the front. Had extra lights. And what was there wasn't there. And I had been fighting to keep my eyes open. And I kept driving, not thinking much about anything. And again, there's no radio back then. No real way to get music out there, keep you awake. And all of a sudden, something was in the road and started running toward the truck. It was, first I didn't know what it was. But then I realized it was kind of like a dog, but it was big, kind of like a wolf. Mangy hair, running toward me. Took me a minute to process it. Jammed on the brakes. Next thing I know, I'm bumping and rocking down the shoulder of the road. Came to a stop. There's no dog. My lights I had turned on were off. That was about it. Scared the hell out of me.
Now, I know you're not one to really believe in the supernatural, and that there is a part of you that believes that maybe due to thought implantation from hearing the stories for so many years, that this might be just a collective imagination thing among truckers, again, due to hearing the stories for years. Give me your insight into that.
I honestly don't think it's a real entity. I think it's like when you watch a movie and you dream about it. And these are horror stories that you're told growing up that, in the industry and the old timers will tell you, take care of yourself and eat right and get plenty of sleep. And then the dog comes. And I heard that story when I was little, and I always thought the dog was a metaphor of something. But I think you get this image in your head of a black dog chasing you to come to get you. And I think at that time, that when you fall asleep or lose the mental capacity of what you're doing, your brain plays a trick on you, and the dog appears to give you a jolt to wake you up, to bring you back to reality real quick.
Now, in doing my research for sitting down with both of you, I found that truckers have several urban legends about them. There's the Phantom Hitchhiker, There's the dog. There's Phantom 309. Even the legend of the dog. The dog was said to have been a companion for a trucker who fell asleep at the wheel and killed himself, the dog, and someone else on the road. All of these legends seem to lead back to one thing: take care of yourself. Much like you were told as a kid and you thought it was just a good life lesson. I don't know for sure whether or not that there is some spectral dog or phantom trucker out there ensuring that you take care of yourself or you do the things that you're supposed to do. But I do find it interesting that that's where all of these lead back to. And that seems to be the case with a lot of folklore and urban legends. They're a warning. Don't go in the woods. Don't fall asleep at the wheel. Don't push too hard. I find that interesting that all of them are in existence to ensure that we take care of ourselves. Folklore is important, and I think with the advent of the internet and social media, that we've gotten away from telling those campfire stories and basically just imparting that wisdom of please be careful.
I think you are right about the campfire stories. Back in the day, before we had all the technology with the phones and everything, we all communicated by CB radio. And we would tell stories back and forth about just the urban legends of trucks, the, curse of the undead trucker. And it was just a way to pass the time when you were running in a group. And it kept you awake. Nowadays, very few trucks have and their semi trucks have CB radios. If they do, they never turn them on. So everyone's too involved in technology, and the stories never get put out anymore.
I can't help but wonder, too, if part of these tales or the birth of these urban legends or the folklore stories came from the abject isolation of truckers out there on the road. I mean, sure, you had the CB where you could talk to one another, but realistically, you were out there by yourself, no one to talk to, nothing but your own thoughts. And just like being in the woods alone, your mind does start to play tricks on you. And if you wanted to talk to somebody, family, friends, wife, you had to find a payphone to do so.
Yeah, back in the day, if you wanted to make a call, you had to go to a truck stop and go to a payphone to call, and you called once a week and let them know. Otherwise, you just talked to all the other drivers. And we kind of lost that brotherhood along the way. And with losing that, you lose the stories and the tales out there of it.
Is the dog real? Well, I don't think we get a definitive answer here. What does seem to be true, though, is that they believe it to be real. And that's really all that matters. Especially when it comes to urban legends.